All right, guys, welcome to your Monday Night Raw review. I have Michael Gross with me tonight to discuss the show at length, some other news around the wrestling industry, fantasy booking, some things, but mainly the Monday Night Raw review. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and we're going to get everything going right after this. Assassinations, stealth, and infiltration. Unit 9 is a living weapon and the best at what he does. When he's assigned to recover a missing bioweapon and hundreds of millions in stolen money, he never expects the mystery to put him face to face with his past mistakes or force him to make a pivotal choice. The first chapter is literally an assassination. Don't wait. Go to tokaace.com, that's TOKAACE.com, to get in on the new series. You're going to love it. Again, that's TOKAACE.com. Toka Ace. You're going to love it.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your number one source for the latest in WWE news and straightforward analysis. Are you ready to get this thing going?
Give me a hell yeah. I said give me a hell yeah.
Then let's get this show started right now.
Hey everybody, and welcome to your Monday Night Raw review. A much longer review than normal, but that's because we've got a guest co-host here tonight. One that I'm sure you're very familiar with in Michael Gross, who is here to discuss everything in WWE right now, but of course, mainly focusing on Monday Night Raw. We try to stay on topic, but when you get two guys that love wrestling, it's hard to stay completely on topic, but we did our damnedest to make sure that we did, and I really do appreciate you guys listening. And I'd like to also at this time give a shout out as we roll into June 1st here, 2021, to our newest patrons over at patreon.com. Mark, he is now in the Raw tier over there at Patreon and enjoying our exclusive What If show that we do with Anthony DeMarco, or I do with Anthony DeMarco every single weekend, just discussing crazy topics like what if CM Punk returned, what if Austin never got injured, that kind of stuff. That's exclusive to the Raw tier. So Mark, I hope you enjoy everything ad-free and you enjoy your exclusive shows. And of course, Amanda Jin, who is upgrading her membership from the NXT tier to the Raw tier. So hope you guys are enjoying your What If show and all the other perks that come with it. So the Discord server too is also a part of that. If you are the Raw tier and higher, you get access to our Discord server, which is a private server that we just launched last pay-per-view. Feels like forever ago. And it's just a little hub, a little VIP hub where you could get together and talk about the pay-per-view in real time. And I'll be on there. And it's a lot of fun. So it's available to you if you are part of the group here. So, okay. If you're interested, let me know. Patreon.com/WWE Podcast. You don't want all those ads and stuff. I know, they're a pain in the neck, but they pay the bills. And I think we have some great sponsors on the show. But if you want to get rid of them, then you're more than able to do it over at patreon.com. And for $1, literally $1, which is pennies per day, you can get rid of it. Okay, so enough of those shameless promotion. I do want to dive into Monday Night Raw because we've got a 2-hour show with Michael Gross, and 2 hours of Michael talking wrestling is, it's like taking a shower. That's how quickly it feels like when I have a conversation with him. But always a great time, and I apologize for the last show that we did. It got cut short because my mic died. The mic you're hearing does probably sound a little bit different. It is actually still the same mic, just an older version. So hopefully I don't sound, worse. Hopefully it's still okay. But I did want to apologize because last show I did was abruptly stopped. That said, we also have a 2-hour show from Ashley Mann and Mimi Burris, who teamed up again and did their own AEW Double or Nothing review. It was awesome, and I'd recommend that you check it out. It's on this feed right now, so go down and look at the feed. It was very well done, and if you enjoy both of them, well, they teamed up to give you the AEW Double or Nothing review. So check them out. I think it was just excellent, and I really think it'll be worth your time to break it into pieces or listen to it in one sitting if you so choose. Alrighty, well, that is enough for me. it's time to get to Michael and myself talking about Raw, everything else going on in WWE, even AEW, and some other news, as well as Raw and some fantasy booking. It's kind of your smorgasbord of a wrestling conversation, but we do try to stay on track. Those of you that are saying, oh, it's all about you guys go off track too much. It's nearly impossible to talk about wrestling and stay on track 100% of the time. It just is. It's hard. So, all right, here we go. Enough of my babbling. Let's get to Michael and myself. And as always, guys, I'll be back tomorrow with your wrestling nostalgia. That's exclusive on Patreon. It's no longer here on the free feed, but your mailbag is on the free feed, and that will be tomorrow as well. So send your questions into realwwepodcast@gmail.com or call us at 518-952-0247 and leave a voicemail. So, alrighty, guys. Thanks as always for listening. Give us a 5-star rating if you can, and I will talk to you next time. Okay, well, it's time for your Monday Night Raw review, and typically, guys, you know that I don't have a co-host on this show, but given that we couldn't lock up our schedules this past Sunday with our weekend review, tonight's a makeup show, and we've got none other than the gardener, Michael Gross, back with us to discuss Monday Night Raw as we are just, 2 weeks and change away from the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and WWE is about to get ready to go back on the road. If you didn't know that, WWE will make sure you know that every 5 minutes. But welcome back to the show, Michael. How's everything going?
Things going fantastic. I've really missed being here. I've really missed having all the listeners contact me and talking wrestling with everybody. As you know, and a lot of the listeners don't know, that I am an incredibly busy man running 2 restaurants right now on location in Tennessee. And for everybody who's reached out and asked me how my boss Sean is doing from the last show, I just want to thank you. He's doing so much better. He's about to actually physically be able to come into the restaurants. In fact, he did make an appearance this past weekend, and I know that a lot of our listeners listen across the board as far as having different tastes, different podcasts, and different interests. And we had a mega food challenge. It was Mr. Randy Santel. It was his 1,000th food challenge. It was a 25-pound cheeseburger. It was a 4-man team challenge. They defeated it in 33 minutes, 55 seconds, earning him his 1,000th victory and his team members various different victories in the hundreds. Most of them had victories around 300 or more. So if you're on Facebook and you find Randy Santel, scroll back a few days and you can watch the whole 30-minute challenge. You might see a cameo of the side of my face and my gray sideburns, but we did have Sean in the house for that. He's doing so much better, and that's at the Kooky Canuck in Memphis, Tennessee. I also just want to say hi to a friend that I've recently reconnected with, a friend in Louisville. Her name's Candy, and she's not quite a friend of the show yet, but I do believe that she's going to be listening quite a bit in the future, and it's just great to catch up with some old friends. And aside from that, just every one of you, there's been at least 4 or 5 people. I know that one name, it's like Pieter in Germany. Thank you for asking about Sean. It really meant a lot. He actually read the message, and it really I couldn't get the guy too emotional, when he just got off oxygen, but it really meant a lot. So thank you, everybody.
Well, very good. That our listeners do, care about, not only the show, obviously, but when serious thing goes on, that it's beyond wrestling. And a lot of times, it puts things in perspective when you have serious things going on. And I really do appreciate the listeners for reaching out. That does mean a lot to, obviously, Michael and myself. So, very good. And, thank you, everybody. But, as we dive into wrestling here, we've got Monday Night Raw to talk about, and there's a lot to discuss there. But we have a couple things before we get there. First of all, the releases of WWE. We have Tom Phillips and Adnan Virk at the head of that. What's your take on WWE, as you called it before the show, a revolving door of commentary staff? Like, what's going on?
I really feel that commentary at this point in WWE is the most dangerous position. You have to listen to somebody tell you what to say as you say it. Now, that's very confusing for your brain or somebody like me who stutters. So I don't know how you can do that. How do you train your brain to say exactly what somebody else is saying? Now, some people will argue, well, I can listen to a song and sing it. Well, you've listened to a song 100 times, so you know what they're going to say before they say it, so you can anticipate it. In this situation, you've got people who are unhappy and or people that were just budgetarily cut. But you look at the last 5 years that everybody who's been in those booths or shuffle around, it is a very dangerous position. And let's look at names. David Otunga, Mauro Ranallo, let's see, we had, of course, Tom Phillips, Adnan Virk. I think he was there for a cup of coffee, and that was about it. So, and Tom Phillips, I actually liked. I enjoyed him on commentary because even though everything he had to say was scripted, it sounded a bit more natural coming out of his mouth. Like he had a really good flow. Booker T, Samoa Joe, which I always thought, for the most part, until you could tell that they were being written for, and even some case JBL, but of course he took a lot of liberties. It sounded more natural because they knew the actual names of the moves. They knew the impact of it. They knew how to sell it, and that's important. That's why JR was always the mouth of WWE for a long time, because he knew how to get over the move that somebody used in the ring, and if somebody called a botch, he knew how to politely explain the botch without it being something super scripted and coming across the way. So I look at these releases, and I don't know what to think of Jimmy Smith right now. I think on Raw last night he sounded like Jimmy scripted, to be honest with you. I've only heard one or two of his fights called in Bellator. There, obviously, it's natural because you don't know what's going to happen in that ring. That's a legit fight between two people. So I think if they pulled the gloves and the governor off him a little bit more, I think the his natural ability to get things over would shine a little bit more than the way he was kind of putting over silly things and calling moves that I don't think he recognizes yet. Maybe he does, and maybe he's just not comfortable, especially with somebody in his ear telling him what to say. But these releases and that deadly position of commentary, I don't expect this same commentary team to be together in 6 months. I really do not. I expect maybe Eva Marie's going to be there. Please, no. I expect it could be anybody. It could be Jason Jordan. Got to find something for him to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
So anybody who wasn't released that can no longer wrestle and has taken on that producer role. It could be Molly Holly. You've heard the news that she's been backstage as an apprentice producer to see if she can take on the role.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that might not be bad because I enjoyed Renee Phillips, another one gone. So if I can just name these people, and I only wrote down Adnan and Tom Phillips, so I'm pulling all this off the top of my head, and I'm sure our listeners are going, what about this one? What about that one? So this is not a good position to be in, and it creates it doesn't create a consistent voice for your product. Consistency creates cash. We know that. If you go to McDonald's anywhere, you're going to get the same Big Mac no matter where you are, and that's why you're going to get a Big Mac. So when you turn on and you hear some voice that could be just god awful, or somebody who sounds like they're lost, or somebody who definitely can they don't have the training yet and they don't feel natural yet, so you can tell for a fact they're scripted, it's going to be a turn. And with last week doing a 1-point average, it's not even better. You're gonna start. It's not saying the commentary team is what's going to make you lose your contract with WWE. With the television, with WWE and the television, it's not going to help ratings, and it is going to pull sponsorship if you just can't get it together. Any little thing has to be micromanaged. That's not a good thing.
Right, and just so you know, your signal is kind of in and out, FYI. I'd say you're like 60-70% good, and then you're trying to trail off, so maybe just turn your computer or put the tinfoil on your head. I don't know, something. But so just FYIs. The other thing, and I did get your message. I think that you stated it pretty well about the commentary team, and the biggest problem I have with the commentary team isn't even necessarily the revolving door. It's really the fact that they don't feel the need to stick with a two-man booth. I think it is a much simpler road to navigate. It's easier for the listener, and I think it's easier for the guys behind the booth to actually be able to navigate the waters of a show, 3-hour show for Raw, 2-hour for SmackDown, if there are fewer guys at the table. And yes, you're going to have Vince McMahon or Kevin Dunn screaming in your ear about things you should say, shouldn't say. That's just going to be the nature of the beast. But I think the bigger problem is not necessarily who they should find, but rather trimming down to 2. I don't know if they think that, there's 3 hours, we got to have 3 guys. In SmackDown, there's 2 hours, we got to have 2 guys. I would leave it, honestly, at Corey Graves and Byron Saxton. I think they're both fine. I think that they play off each other well. I don't need a third man, and I think on SmackDown it works well, too, with Michael Cole. So I am totally fine with two. Would you want two, or do you think that this guy would work given his MMA background? Jimmy Smith.
We have to give him a shot. He might be able to connect with the audience. He might be able to lead some credibility to the product. So I'm all for giving him a shot, but I'm more of a fan of the two-man because it worked with the King and JR. It worked originally in WCW before they just started adding everybody to the booth and then rotating it. So let's go back to a two-man. Let's try to make it less confusing because now I've noticed a lot of these commentators, their voices kind of sound the same, so you don't know if someone's talking to themselves or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. They do all kind of have that same voice, and I think a big problem with that is not necessarily actually how their voice sounds itself, but rather the fact that they're saying the same things and the same lines that anybody could say because they're being told what to say. So I think absolutely. Now, I do want to, of course, get to Raw, but beyond the releases of this revolving door of that third man on commentary, we do have Mark Henry, who appeared in AEW. I didn't even know his contract was up. His Legends contract was up in WWE, but lo and behold, Mark Henry appears. What are your thoughts on the world's strongest man making an appearance in AEW?
This one boggles my mind. He came out, he waved to the audience. Apparently he said that he's not wrestling, that he would like to become a producer, and he didn't have that opportunity to get into an executive's position in WWE. I find it, I think that's good for him, and I think that if that's what he wants to do, that is great, but as far as in-ring goes, I don't want to see him compete. I don't want to see one more match because he never had a wow factor when he was wrestling, in my opinion. Kick, punch, body slam, and the occasional elbow drop does not make a match. It doesn't make a story. It was boring. But if he has a good mindset and he can help bigger men and he can produce a good match, and if he has that kind of mindset, and they say he does, and that's why he was employed for so long, then I'm all for it. Let's see what the guy has. Obviously, they know they've always said that he's been a complete and utter professional behind the scenes forever. Now, to me, that's a big thing because that's one of the reasons Velveteen Dream got his walking papers. They said he was just a nightmare to deal with backstage. So if he can lend that kind of professionalism to a company that has kind of gone rogue in its ideas, then we're on to something. I mean, you look at the fact that they're trying too hard with their version of a War Games match, and then you blatantly get the wrong camera cut to Chris Jericho falling on, a doctored desk or piece of metal that was really a crash pad. And the same thing with the Eddie Kingston covering Kenny Omega with the little explosion in the death match, which was just a joke. So if you can find somebody in production who's worked alongside Kevin Dunn and some of the people who say, all right, we need to cut this camera angle. We can't do this as a live. It has to be pre-recorded. We have to think ahead. Okay, this is a great idea for a match, but we have to tone it down because it's going to look too hokey, and we got to stop doing cinematics. That's another thing. Mark Henry is a very old school guy in my mindset and your mindset. He doesn't like that cinematic stuff. So if he can help them to lead that credence to their product, I'm really for it because this might be somebody that they'll listen to backstage and say, okay, our idea is good, but he's polished it up and made it better. And he can also twist our spine in half, so we're going to listen to him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the guy is literally. I'm sure he is stronger than about 90% of the men on Earth right now, even at his age. Certainly, the guy's a beast. But yeah, I'm with you. And it is surprising WWE didn't keep his mind. Yes, his body wasn't any use anymore, but like you said, at least put him in a producer role and some kind of agent role. He certainly was and does have more than enough knowledge and years and mileage under his belt to be able to provide and give back to the talent, work in the Performance Center. But obviously, WWE didn't feel that way, or at least strongly enough to present him with maybe a dollar amount that was respectable to him. So, yeah, look, I wish all the best to Mark Henry. The guy is a genuinely good dude from everything I've seen. So, I do wish him the best in AEW, and, that's good for him. But, on to another AEW story. Jim Ross why don't you, I guess, educate our fans, if they haven't heard, about what Jim Ross said is, and who he thinks is the greatest wrestler in the world today.
So Jim Ross firmly believes that the best worker right now in the free world right now is Randy Orton, which caused a huge Twitter backlash. It's caused all kinds of social media backlash, and many different credible wrestling videographers like What Culture and Steven Larson. A lot of them have covered this and they've talked about it, because the amount of backlash thing is really unfair. And he made a great point. The man will wrestle sick. He'll wrestle injured. He doesn't overact. Besides the incident with Kofi at Madison Square Garden many years ago, which he also paid the price for many years later, he's always been a professional as far as the ring goes. He tries to tell a story. Some people say he's boring. Okay, you've got the RKO, which comes out of nowhere, and you've got a couple signature moves. But he's going to put over somebody else's moveset. He tries to switch it up. Case in point this week with the powerbomb. I loved it when he pulled that powerbomb out. That was great. How often do you see Randy Orton do a powerbomb?
How often do we see anybody do a powerbomb? But yeah.
And so I like the fact that he'll try some new stuff to make it fit into the situation in the match. And as far as, not doing the taking a spear and kipping up like nothing hurt, like many of the people over in AEW, and that's not a bash on AEW, it's just that not selling thing, that's going to hurt you. It's really, really going to hurt you. So that's why Jim Ross made all these points, that the guy won't miss a day. He won't take his ball and go home with it. If he's told to drop a title, he drops it. He does what he's told. He had to work that god-awful program with Jinder Mahal. It was an embarrassment, because both his career was tarnished a bit, and so was Shinsuke Nakamura's. But when it comes to Orton, he's always been a professional. And you look at his match with Brock Lesnar, when he told Brock, "Shoot on me. I want this to look as legit as possible," and he had his skull elbowed open.
That's SummerSlam, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that tells you, okay, like, I know this is going to hurt, but I want something in there that looks real. And he's another one that's also against cinematic matches. He didn't like some of the stuff he had to do with the Bray Wyatt and burning the house down. He's been involved with it and burning him in a coffin alive. He's been known to talk backstage as far as, why are we doing this? But of course you're overruled when you have a 70+ out of touch, slowly going insane man running the show. So that's my thing about Orton is, I think it's a justifiable statement. I think there are people who might be better. I think there are people that might be, better workers to tell better stories, but they don't have as many miles under their belt as Randy Orton, and didn't do it at the incredibly high top tier level of sports entertainment, as far as always working for WWE and Wrestling, which was the conduit to WWE at the time, and always doing exactly what he was told and what he.
You're listening to the WWE Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Assassinations, stealth, and infiltration. Unit 9 is a living weapon and the best at what he does. When he's assigned to recover a missing bioweapon and hundreds of millions in stolen money, he never expects the mystery to put him face to face with his past mistakes or force him to make a pivotal choice. The first chapter is literally an assassination. Don't wait. Go to tokaace.com, that's TOKAACE.com, to get in on the new series. You're going to love it. Again, that's TOKAACE.com. Toka Ace. You're going to love it.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
The thing is with this, it's hard for me to respond without diving into a 2-hour conversation just on Randy Orton's career, and this is really difficult to just give a quick overview of, but I'll try, and I'll just say yes. I mean, I think that, well, it's an extremely subjective thing. I think Jim Ross is validated in his opinion that Randy Orton is the best worker in the world. Just because he is working for AEW doesn't mean he has to mention somebody he doesn't believe is truly the best worker. I understand what people are saying and where they're coming from, but the fact remains, I mean, Randy Orton is one of the best workers. Whether you find his style boring or not, the RKO is sometimes more over than the storyline he's in, if not a lot of times. The guy is a consummate professional. I mean, backstage in his early years, you've heard horror stories, but since that time, the guy he kept himself in shape. He's keeping himself out of the PR nightmares that could possibly happen. He's not creating bad press for WWE. The guy has, over the last year and a half, 2 years, really started to understand what Randy Orton is as a heel and kind of reinvent himself and remember how good he can be. I mean, I think Jim Ross is more than validated at saying it. It just comes down to loyalty and the fact that, JR is working for AEW. Why is he talking about WWE? I understand it, but the fact is, Randy is one of the best in the world. And it's a shame that we never got to see a motivated Randy Orton through his entire career, right? Like, that to me is the biggest crime, is that Randy Orton's only motivated at certain times. So
it's. You can see the lack of motivation at certain times, but I also see a guy, and like I said a month ago when I was on the show, Randy's tired. You can tell because his build is starting to get a little soft, although it's still in great shape, but he's been doing this 20 years, or something like that, like close to 20 years, all for WWE. And you can tell he's tired. Randy needs a break, but they say, we can't give you a break because so-and-so got injured, now we got to put you in the storyline. And it's kind of thing where it's like, he's going to go home, then he looks down at his bag, unzips it, and starts putting on his gear again. Like, yeah. All right. So I think that lends a lot of credibility to that statement. And like I said, some of the more indie-rific styles of some of these wrestlers that people get enamored with in AEW or perhaps Impact, New Japan, or Ring of Honor, it's like some of these guys do such amazing things. But then after a while you look at it and you say, am I watching a gymnastics meet or am I watching professional wrestling?
I think gymnastics is a perfect analogy of what today's product is. Again, this is another topic we could go into and deep dive into. So I have to sidestep that because I want to stay on task and make sure that we're talking about Monday Night Raw here, because man, oh man, could we get into that. So I'll sidestep it, but let's jump into Monday Night Raw because, again, WWE is a few weeks away now from the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. We all know why they moved Hell in a Cell, at least presumably because they are going back on the road. Freaking Luya. Real fans are going to be there, and they have a 25-city tour, as we all know, starting in Texas. And I think that their first show back is going to be explosive, big stars, as it should be. They should treat it like a freaking pay-per-view. It's that big of a deal to go back on the road consistently, not just a one-off of WrestleMania. Like, this is consistently back to normal, hopefully. So I think it should be celebrated. They should bring out all the big guns, get back to any big storylines that they were maybe putting on the back burner because of COVID, and they just kind of, sidestep that. And so anything that they were thinking about doing, now is the time to unleash it, at least as we move forward into next year's WrestleMania season. So Monday Night Raw, I do have to ask right off the top, I'll start with the main event here with Kofi Kingston and Drew McIntyre, my friend. I have to ask you, did you want Kofi to win? Did you expect it to be some kind of awkward ending where it still ends up being a triple threat because somebody else interferes? Did you expect a Kofi victory? How did you expect this one to play out? And were you excited about the ending with Drew McIntyre getting yet again another chance at Bobby Lashley at Hell in a Cell?
First of all, I want to know why we're getting this all of a sudden renewed New Day push, because it seems like they've been blasted all over Raw for a couple weeks now. They're always in. Okay, you have them in the Orton Riddle storyline. You have them, with McIntyre. You have them with Lashley. I'm really confused on this. Okay, because first of all, Drew's Drew, and at this point, okay, so he had a long title run. He doesn't need the title. I don't see a credible match between Kofi and Bobby Lashley because I see Bobby turning into a tiger and eating him in Hell in a Cell. I could see that. It's like the Brock Lesnar match all over again. That's what I would expect out of Lashley and Kofi. I don't want to see a triple threat. So we go back to Drew. And it's like, okay, he had a lengthy title run. It was marred with a loss to Orton, and which made no sense. We still are scratching our heads going, why 1 week title? Why? But he's already had his title, his He's already lost now to Lashley. He's done it cleanly. He doesn't need the title at this point. He needs a real meaty story with somebody else. He needs something else to go to. The problem is I don't see any – I really am having a hard time seeing any babyface at that top tier level to go against Bobby Lashley because they've hurt Matt Riddle's credibility. And, I mean, honestly, who's left on the so-called top tier on Raw to you? Because I don't see Kofi as it.
Well, I think that's telling of where they're at with the babyface roster and in general of star power. And I've hammered this home a few times over the last several shows, is that this is such an exposure of the lack of star power, of babyface star power specifically on the Raw side of WWE, and really WWE in general. Even when you look at the SmackDown end of things, what is it? Cesaro's your top babyface. I mean, Daniel Bryan's gone there, and so. The lack of star power, especially on the babyface side, is sorely lacking, which is why they continue to just go back to the well with Drew, go back and go back and go back, and now they're trying to recreate the Kofi Mania, a movement that was organic. By definition, you can't recreate something that's organic, right? Like, if it's organic, that means it doesn't happen with help. It doesn't happen with something in mind. It wasn't manufactured by creative. Now they're trying to recreate Kofi Mania 2. WWE loves to recreate things, and I think this is not going to work. I think if fans were in an arena, they would probably not be behind. I don't think they'd be even behind Drew McIntyre at this point. I think if fans were back, I think fans would say, "Can we move on, Drew? Please, can we please move on with something that's beyond you chasing the championship? We appreciate what you've done for it, but for the love of God, get into a personal storyline, right?" I don't need Drew, constantly chasing the title. As much as you and I love championships and adding value to them, I think it's now at the point of regression for Drew McIntyre. Yeah,
the best is because the company doesn't really know what to do with Braun Strowman either. That's one where they're like, he walks into a room and they just throw their papers up in the air and like, well, you'll bulldoze over 2 people tonight.
Yep.
Okay, so Drew and Braun can work a program because it could be reminiscent of Braun and The Fiend, because The Fiend is nowhere near the size of Braun, but he's got victories over him. Now, everybody knows if Drew could take out Lesnar, he can take out Braun. So I could take 2 months worth of a match series from them or a build with them, maybe throw in a pull-apart brawl, but I need a vicious side of Braun because the babyface Braun isn't working, the train isn't working, his character is hurting. He's supposed to be like the next Andre, the next special feature, and he's failing in that because they keep running out of credible opponents for him as he's a babyface. As he's a heel, we can tie up Drew with that. He's also in a position where he can't be the one to go after Lashley because people automatically assume he's going to win. It just doesn't work. You look at it and you think it would work, but then you look back at it on paper and you say, no, I can't do this. I think their best bet is I would scrap their plans for Hell in a Cell and just try to pull Finn Balor up as fast as possible, because he did have wins over Lashley. He brings back the demon character. He'll put some eyeballs on the screen because he is a great worker, a fantastic worker, and even though he's a lot smaller, he has a unique charisma that makes up for it. You put him in a ring against AJ Styles, you see no size difference. You put AJ Styles against anybody you know how great of a worker is, you don't see a size difference. You think of him as a normal-sized wrestler. You don't see him as so much smaller, as a guy that Vince would despise or never push. So there's something to be said about charisma, work rate, and ring presence. Finn Balor has all those things, and he can be shot to the top as a top babyface, and headline that Hell in a Cell, because Kofi, he doesn't have it. It's just, you take a guy who acts the way he acts. It's been played out. He finally split the New Day, but he's still trying to dress like some kind of, I don't know, like urban Aztec warrior. I don't know what that getup is, and it's irritating. Hearing the playing the trump, it's gotten so under my skin. It's given me hives.
Yeah, it's been how many years? It feels like it's 5-6 years since they've been doing this. It's unbelievable of their resistance to break this team up. And I've said it over again. I understand from a business perspective why they're doing it. I don't know the sale numbers on their merchandise, but I would assume that they do target a younger audience. And guess who's buying it? The parents are buying for the actual, their kids. Obviously, they're buying the cereals, they're buying the t-shirts, they're buying the unicorn horns, everything like that. So, money speaks. And if they are still high in the merchandise sale rankings, then I understand why they're not breaking them up. I get that. And people, just look at it from a creative perspective, but don't forget WWE is a for-profit organization. So
yes.
There is that. And I think that is the single reason, or at least one of the biggest reasons they're not breaking them up is they're a cash cow. The other thing is, to answer your question about what the hell Kofi was wearing, it looked like a Power Ranger outfit. I mean, I was a huge Power Rangers fan in the 90s when I was a kid. It looks exactly like, I think he was wearing like the Gold Ranger outfit. I mean, I don't know if that's what it was supposed to be, but it was exact. So, congratulations to Kofi for moving from a unicorn to a Power Ranger. I guess Angel Grove needs you. Those that watch Power Rangers, know what I'm talking about. But hey, I'm not a Kofi fan. I never have been. The guy's from a personal perspective, again, Kofi's a great guy from everything I've seen, family man, all of that. I respect his career. I can't stand his gimmick almost as much as Miz and Morrison, and we'll get to that next. I'm scared about talking about that too. But to kind of close this piece of it out, I think that ultimately what the end game is this. Drew loses at Hell in a Cell. I don't care if somehow Kofi still sneaks his way into this match. I could still see that happening, by the way, because I don't know what else Kofi does at Hell in a Cell. They tease him as a main eventer, and then he just does nothing. I mean, so I could still see him somehow weaseling his way in, making it a triple threat. I think that's actually probably what will happen. Either way, it doesn't matter because Bobby Lashley's going to retain, and Bobby Lashley sort of sidestepped the Brock Lesnar talk because he said, and I'll paraphrase this. He said that that Kofi and Drew are talking about a guy that's not even competing here right now. Meaning he didn't say Brock Lesnar by name, and that I think was by design. And it was wink and a nod to, I'm not going to mention his name yet, but I'll talk about him in kind of a third person, like, that guy. So I think after he retains, I still would give it 50-50 shot that Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley is a SummerSlam main event. Do you think that's the end goal, or is there something else?
I mean, it'll definitely put eyeballs on the product. It'll definitely put eyeballs on the product. And I want to see it. I know you want to see it. I know how big of a Lesnar fan you are, and you know how big of a Bobby Lashley Bellator fighting fan I am. So it's like it almost brings the Mike Tyson effect in when everybody wanted to see what was going to happen at WrestleMania because they know he's legitimately crazy. He might bite someone's ear off or break someone's nose with a stiff jab, and he followed script. But we have two big hosses who've talked about actually legitimately fighting each other. So will they go off script or not? Just that temptation alone. Because if there's anybody who can take him out, it's Bobby Lashley. Especially with the fact that Brock has diverticulitis. So it's very, very it puts a lot of tension and it puts a lot of depth and story and texture behind it. So that should be the end game because that makes the most sense to me. And that I would watch it. I'd take the night off.
Yeah, no, it is. Those of you that are working, guys, just tell your boss, listen, if you hear that Brock Lesnar music, you got to say, hey, I'm calling in. No, I'm not coming in tonight. I mean, it really would be something to see. And yes, people, what about Paul Heyman? He's with Roman Reigns. Easy. Paul Heyman's on a different show. He could, I think, duel his services out to Brock Lesnar, who does need a mouthpiece. Brock on the mic is it can be awkward, it can be okay. Brock has been good at times. He's all over the place. He's kind of unpredictable on the mic. Brock he's not the best promo. So I still would trust Paul Heyman, and they could easily create a story that Paul Heyman is managing both guys. I have no problem with that because he's on a different brand. So I think that's a non-issue for those that are wondering, and I think it would be it would certainly be a needle mover. This would be something that would get people back from WrestleMania that had tuned out and be like, whoa, wait, Brock's back? And I think that, because don't forget, we haven't seen Brock since last year's WrestleMania in the Eerily Quiet Performance Center against Drew McIntyre. That was the last time we saw him. So it's been over a year, and I think it would create shockwaves right now, especially going against Bobby Lashley. A match that if it doesn't happen this year, then when? I mean, neither guy's getting younger. So do you think it's likely? Do you think it's unlikely? Where would you put this at, the chances of this actually happening?
The chances are really good if these ratings keep dipping. Then you just pull out the wallet and you solve it all right there. But, it's funny because you said you could have Heyman on either show as his manager. I could one-up that for you. And this is really cool. What if, as his manager, and also for every match does his commentary, Mauro Ranallo?
God, I love Mauro. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. Has Mauro, forgive me, has he ever done any kind of managerial role before, or has he strictly been commentary?
He's strictly been commentary, but I think that he's got the capabilities. I know he possesses the capabilities, and I think it would be awesome for him to come out, announce him, and just be strictly about business instead of Heyman being the smarmy, I'm going to get under your skin, because you're going to have everything written for Mauro anyway. The difference is Heyman just gets bullet points and he can go from there. But Mauro can do it with his unique voice and with his ability he makes whatever commentator, get up and stand behind him while he does his commentary and doesn't even allow the other commentator to speak. That's how you're getting your heat right there.
Well,
and of course, Brock just goes through people. And that is what you could do if they don't want to split Paul Heyman, but it also brings that more UFC feel into it. So it's kind of a fun idea. But yeah, it as you were saying, because I don't want to sidestep the question that you gave me, is the end game for this is that they have to wrestle sometime. And even if a title's not on the line, which it's hard to see at this point, Lashley losing the title anytime soon, and it's hard to see Brock competing in any kind of match without a title.
Yes.
Yep. He comes in, hand him the gold. He does what he wants. But he's also a person, like we discussed, that doesn't need it, but he loans so much more to it. And if it's going to be like a one-off, I would say actually have a legit shoot. Just let him have a legit shoot at SummerSlam. If there's no belt on the line, that's what's going to put people in the stadium. That's what's going to sell the pay-per-views if you're not already on Peacock and you can't pause it. So,
Peacock. Oh, God, don't get me started. Yeah.
Well, have you tried going the VPN route, getting like a Surfshark VPN, and then?
Yeah, people keep telling me that. Ashley, is that actually going to work? Like if I get ExpressVPN or whatever, and then it'll scramble my IP address and I can use the network? Is that actually true?
What you do is you like Surfshark's a big one, and I don't know if you watch Wrestling with Regret on YouTube, but Brian Zane's been talking about it, who's the host, and he shows you exactly how to do it. It's like his ad going in. You get Surfshark, it scrambles your IP. You go to WWE UK, which is still like the normal WWE network, and you put in your credentials and you watch it that way and do whatever you want that way.
Okay, I may do this. Everybody listening, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to plug another show, but that's worth plugging because those of you frustrated with Peacock, I feel your frustration. There's no chapters. The scrubbing is a pain in the neck. Searching for something is it's like needle in a haystack. It's a nightmare in Peacock compared to the network. So awesome, yeah.
And only 25% of the content, if that, is there.
Wow,
that's frustrating.
Yeah, no, so. It's a complete mess. They got their $1 billion literally, and then just banked and left. It's Peacock's got to get their blank straight. You know what I mean? So okay, well, I think the Brock Lesnar thing to wrap this up again. I think Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley does happen. If you're going to put a gun to my head, I think it probably does. I wouldn't put a slam dunk on it, but with the fans coming back, I think you're going to see star power return. You're going to see bigger storylines happen because, as I said at the beginning of the show, I think they were probably backburnering a lot of things that they wanted to do pre-COVID, decided to pause it because you don't want to have no fans while they do it. And also, you don't want to have big stars return in front of nobody or in front of the Thunderdome. You want live human beings there to cheer or boo, and that, to me, is the soul of wrestling, as it is many sports. So I think you're going to see, starting in mid-July when they go back on the road, this is a strong possibility, along with, I'm hearing rumors of John Cena returning on the first SmackDown, which is possible, and maybe face Roman Reigns. And I don't want to get into that, but my point is there's a lot going on that is, I think, on the horizon with fans returning. So now... well, first, let me give you the opportunity. Any final thoughts before we get to Miz and Morrison?
What I'd like to do is I would love to have Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley in the same ring, hyped up on PCP, and then tell them that Miz and Morrison had made out with their wives and just...
And then just do those.
Let nature take its course.
Yeah, just let your the deep fakes. Have you heard of the deep fakes where people can literally almost to a T duplicate what you look like in speaking and things, and do a deep fake where they're making out. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Please. Yeah, that sounds
Sorry.
like. No, I'm on board for that. I mean, can we sign a petition or do a GoFundMe? Yeah.
Gosh, yes.
So speaking of Miz and Morrison, guys, we go from one extreme to the other here with Miz and Morrison opening Raw. That's how you know it's going to be a very questionable Raw when Miz TV starts the show. One of the most overused, overrated segments, and I just don't understand the need for it. Guys, you guys know how terrible I think the Miz TV is, how bad Miz and Morrison are together. Solo, guys, I want to point this out. Solo, I think they could be a lot better on their own, especially Morrison, who is just being relegated to a 13-year-old boy who's just starting to go through puberty. That's how I feel that they've cast this man. I think there's more there if he turns serious and breaks away. But when they're together, it is the worst combination and the most embarrassing iteration of professional wrestling that you can possibly come up with. This past week is no exception. They didn't disappoint. They're coming out, and we have garlic around the neck of Johnny Drip Drip, who tries to work in the word moist to everything, which is one of the worst words ever, by the way. I mean, it is just it's just a cringy word anyway, right? You hear somebody say moist, it's like, can you come up with a different word? So Johnny Drip Drip is coming up with all these terrible things. He has garlic around his neck to keep away the vampires and zombies and aliens and all this terrible, terrible scripting stuff. And the Miz is going on, of course, and Nikki Cross comes out. What do you have? Do you have anything to say about this segment? I mean, besides burying it completely?
You're listening to the WWE Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
Assassinations, stealth, and infiltration. Unit 9 is a living weapon and the best at what he does. When he's assigned to recover a missing bioweapon and hundreds of millions in stolen money, he never expects the mystery to put him face to face with his past mistakes or force him to make a pivotal choice. The first chapter is literally an assassination. Don't wait. Go to tokaace.com. That's TOKAACE.com. to get in on the new series. You're going to love it. Again, that's TOKAACE.com. Toka Ace. You're going to love it.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Okay, actually, I'm going to tell you some positives. First of all,
Ooh, I like it.
I'm glad that they're working Nikki Cross into something. Okay, now the question is, she's gone from insane to ambitious. Okay, so I'm hoping that they keep tuning up. Excuse me, my stuttering. Tuning up her character into something a little bit more to a real character. If you notice, something's going to happen with her because they're protecting her. She's winning matches, but she's only winning by not losing in a time fashion, okay? Mm-hmm. But they're protecting her for a reason here. So they're going to make this a triple threat match, and I think that's because they want to prolong Charlotte and Rhea. First of all, Rhea still looks amazing, but I got to give a lot of kudos to Nikki because her body transformation has been insane. She used to be a little bit of a bigger girl, a little bit more roly-poly, but not fat or anything. I'm not trying to say that. She has really tightened up her body.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah. And when her body was bigger, she relied more on an insane style, like when she was with Sanity and body attacks and craziness. You take that away because her body is shrunk. I want to see when she's actually wrestling and not just playing keep away from the two top tier women. If she's learned some new moves and has a different skill set. So she has added an element of intrigue and mystery, and that's a very big positive to me. And obviously you see her size difference, especially with Rhea. I didn't even realize Rhea's taller than Charlotte. That's tall.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And Charlotte is unique because obviously she's Ric Flair's daughter, and if she's not the best female worker in the world, she's top 3, okay? And just by being who she is and being the queen, she has her own character. She's never going to go away. She's never going to be relegated to second. She's never going to be questioned out of any top-tier feud, okay? Rhea Ripley is the reason that Ruby Riott will never get a push, because lately I've noticed that they're trying to take, and you can see it with like Kevin Owens and such like elements of older characters and put them in new characters, hoping we can get there again. With Rhea Ripley's case, it's not that as much as you had Ruby Riott with this unique look and unique attitude, and all of a sudden you come out to Rhea Ripley who has almost the exact same look. So instead they're making her the killer, the destroyer. So at least it's not taken away from Ruby Riott being like a punk rocker. But when you look too much alike, it kind of one person suffers for it. Just ask Drew McIntyre how Aleister Black's doing. So, I mean, that's the truth. So the best part of the segment is we've made Nikki Cross relevant again. She's got 2 victories out of the segment coming out. The fact that both Rhea and Charlotte just looked at John Morrison and said, "You look stupid." It's because they said what everybody at home's thinking. It's the fact that not only did Charlotte say it, but then Rhea had to say it too. And the way Charlotte was just kind of like with an attitude, like, "You look stupid," but then Rhea said it with disdain, like not disdain as much as like hatred. Like, "You look stupid."
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you looked in a mirror? And it was great to get 2 people who don't like each other the same opinion on the same 2 D-bags that are hosting the show. I'm doing really good with my censorship these days, you have to admit.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Well, I want everybody to be able to listen.
And saves me work on the back end, so I don't have to edit it, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I respect you. So now we're going to segue into, first of all, the moist word. Do you know something like 30% of all women hate that word?
Oh, I believe it. Yep.
I've actually there was a study on it because we were in class. This is when I was in high school, and the biology teacher was talking about something being moist, and this girl cringed, and so then she was the one who told us about this, and it's very interesting. So she polled all of her classes to ask them, like in a secret, do you like the word, yes or no? And it was like so much overwhelming response of people hating that word, and mostly female. Isn't that cool?
Yeah,
but they actually did studies, yeah.
I wonder why. I don't know what it is. I'd like to dive into that. I mean, those listening, we do have a lot of female listeners. Sorry, guys or gals.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to overuse that word. It is kind of a weird word, but yeah, if you don't listen to Raw, the opening segment anyway. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, please skip that all the way around. All right, so the what do you call that drip?
Johnny Drip
squirt gun thing.
I
hated it.
Oh, what did he call it?
Like the Dripsicle or something like that. It was so stupid.
Something ridiculous, yeah.
And who are you shooting at? Idiot. And the Miz looked like he forgot his lines. Did you notice that?
He covered it, but I noticed.
Yeah, he definitely cut, like, at that match. The way he said it's like, you forgot where you wrestled him?
Yeah.
It was so weird. So, okay, you've got the Miz doing his smarmy thing, but it is, as you and I call it, our bathroom break segment, forgetting his lines, and then you have John Morrison looking, like you said, a 13-year-old, a complete and utter inane fool. And then the garlic. This tells me that they're going to write one more stupid storyline into this. I feel that that's going to be the next step is, yeah, we will have vampires. And then asking Rhea, are you a vampire? She's like, no, I'm not a vampire. Like, I got a feeling they're not done with the dumb cinematic match with these two. And it goes from really bad to incredibly worse. That's how I felt about that whole segment. So, like I said, Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, talk some smack about their wives and hype these guys up on PCP and some bottle of Jack Daniels and let just nature take its course.
No, and make it I would pay. Like, I would pay, $100 to watch the event and have it be real. Like, put them in an octagon. That's what I'd love to see. I mean, it would be
with
brilliant.
a roof on it.
Yeah, no escape.
With a roof on it. What are you talking about? You would pay. You and I would be front and center.
Yeah,
okay.
I would. I would
a
just
bucket of popcorn.
I know. I would just already, get my hotel accommodations, get a flight. I mean, I'd pay the whole 9 yards. Take time off work. Risk my marriage for just leaving my pregnant wife. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, but I like the Charlotte and Rhea have chemistry,
yes.
And the fact that Rhea's first title reign was postponed 1 calendar year, has built a storyline between them and has built animosity between them. So their chemistry is great. And from what I understand, they like to work backstage. They like to go over their matches and talk about their potential, things like that. Like, they really want to blow the doors off it. Because Rhea, she has overwhelming chemistry. She's really good in the ring. She's not Charlotte good, but she's really good. But working with Charlotte is going to take her to a whole new level. The fact that they have 2 different skill sets. So we're seeing it's only like the second or third time they wrestled. So every match with them is still somewhat a fresh match with different spots, different moves, not a move set. You're going to get the finishing moves, and you're going to get a couple of, Charlotte cartwheel moves and Rhea kind of, dirty brawl moves. But every time they do it, they up the game a little bit more. So yes, please. And then add Nikki Cross, who, if she's taking care of her body that well and getting into better shape, I really think that her in-ring has probably gotten a lot better, and it's not just crazy style attacking. So I want to see where she goes, because you and I agreed last time we talked that some of the most entertaining stuff they're doing is the women's division.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I have, and I'm glad Nikki Cross is back. I'm glad, like you said, she has certainly gotten into better shape. That's great. Good for her. Respect all around. The only thing I would say is, while she was in the opening segment of Raw, great exposure. Working with 2 top talent of Rhea and Charlotte, great exposure. That is all great. The only thing I would say, if I'm going to put a fly in the ointment, so to speak, is, well, if we're supposed to take her seriously and not just as a stepping stone, I mean, she can't continue to win matches that are basically, let's avoid my opponent for 2 minutes to win. I mean, she can't continue to work these and claim them as real victories, and even have Rhea Ripley say, oh, you earned my respect last week. I'm like, how did she earn your respect last week? For 2 minutes in the ring, of which she was trying to avoid you half of that time? It was kind of a weird thing for Rhea to say, that she earned her respect, given the fact that the circumstances of that, quote, match they had last week. But I am certainly more positive on the women's side of this, not the men's, because we all know where that stands, but the women's side of this, getting Nikki Cross into the mix. The women certainly need a bit of a shakeup. Charlotte is back. That's great. And I think her and Rhea do have the potential to put on a very, very good match at Hell in a Cell. Do I think that Charlotte could win? Yeah, I think there's actually a very good chance of Charlotte winning that match in a few short weeks.
If it happens, I think that the ultimate plan with her is to hit the 16 time like her dad, and then she's just going to work top tier storylines, because I really think that they're going to protect that 16 time world title reign. The only person, the 2 closest people on the male side of things are Randy Orton, obviously, and John Cena. I think at this point, though, if he comes back, of course it's going to pop ratings, but then when he starts going over everybody, it's going to barrel roll ratings back to the let's go Cena sucks era, or even worse, it could just help the ratings plummet a little bit more. And if he breaks the record, I think that's just going to be a negative for him. I think that people are going to resent him for that, because for a long time everybody got sick of Super Cena. It's just, oh, here he comes, he's going to win. It's like the Nexus thing all over again. You had a storyline that was making sense and a bunch of workers who were brand new, and it caused some excitement, and then you outright buried him. And who buried him? Cena and Orton, and it just caused backlash. So Coming down to it, if Charlotte wins, then Rhea gets the title back real soon. I don't want to see hot potato. Rhea needs to go on a lengthier run, and you and I are about lengthier runs. But you also have to have meaningful title defenses. You can't be losing to 2-minute keep away matches. And if she's a destroyer, I want to see her destroy things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not necessarily Brock Lesnar destroy things, but she has to set a precedent to develop the character just a little bit more. So we always know and we're always reminded she's top tier talent.
Exactly. No, and I'm glad to see Nikki back in the mix, and I hope she stays. Just need a little more credible wins other than just let's see how long I can stay out of the match and win, by avoiding my opponent for 2 minutes. Okay. Moving on though, Randy Orton and Riddle, RK Bro. We got, Randy Orton and Xavier Woods this past week.
Yep.
And Randy Orton, look, Xavier Woods, as much as I hate the New Day character, Xavier Woods is, I think, really good in the ring. And he's shown it 2 weeks in a row now that he can be on his own. If they officially break up the New Day, I think he'll do just fine. And again, gimmick sucks in the ring. In-ring work is very good. So there is that dichotomy of how you feel about him. But Randy Orton and Xavier put on a good match, and having Orton use the Bro Derek finish while we had Matt Riddle on the outside of the ring losing his mind. What do you make? Because I don't know if I've gotten your opinion on RK Bro yet. How do you take all this?
Well, it's interesting, but I also see it as water thing, because we all know it's a matter of time before Randy turns on Matt Riddle. It's one of those things where you can tell just by the way he looks at him. That's the only thing that's weak with it, is you always know that at the end of any storyline, Randy's always going to be the heel. And even when you try to tease the face turn, or even when they had him as a face when he defeated Benoit for the world title, how long did it last before he was evil again? So the guy can't stay face to save his life. And while they're trying to build this as a face thing, what I would like to do, get them a tag team title win. And I would go with the angle of it where it's almost like when Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold were the tag champs. They couldn't stand to be together, but they had to hold the belts. You just have to find a unique spin to put on it, so it's not just ripping off an old storyline, because we know eventually Randy will leave Matt Riddle to the Wolves, and that's how they're going to lose. Okay, what I was saying is, we always realize that at any storyline that Randy Orton gets put in, especially in a tag team situation, he's eventually going to turn on whoever his partner is. And what I would like to see is revisiting the angle from when Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin held the tag titles together. They couldn't stand being around each other. They couldn't stand being the tag champions, but they had the same common enemy in the Hart Foundation. So they put up with it until they eventually split. And the split, everybody knows I'm right, would be Randy leaves Matt to the Wolves. So to make this new and unique and see if they could stick it out for 6 months, how about Matt Riddle turns on Randy and he becomes the heel?
You stole my thunder, my friend. That's,
I'm sorry.
It's it's fine, because I think that in Vince's mind, he knows. I mean, Vince may be an old guy that, somewhat out of touch and is probably bordering on dementia onset. I think that he still understands what the common feeling is among fans when a storyline is coming up of who's going to turn. And when Vince feels that there's too many people who quote, know what's going to happen, they'll do the opposite just to swerve us at times. So I think that while most people see Randy turning on Riddle, which is still possible, I think actually the more likely scenario is, just because Vince likes to work this way, is actually Riddle turning on Randy. Not necessarily because it's the right thing, but more because it's the more unpredictable thing, and oftentimes they aren't the same thing. Sometimes the right thing and the unpredictable thing are not the right thing. Oftentimes they're not. So, I mean, honestly, I'm fine with it if they do it that way. I don't know how Matt Riddle is going to be as a heel in his current character unless he does a flip of, trying to be the jokey kind of, marijuana-loving guy, frat guy. I don't know how they're going to do it. But, yeah, I could see them doing it simply for the sake of swerving everybody that thought Randy was going to do it to Riddle. I think that's the more likely scenario.
It's the only way to make it come out and make some sense. And like I said, if you can make it last 6 months and maybe have each one of them get a new tag team partner, so that way it puts a different spin on just 50-50 booking of the same match over and over again, these two over again, but this time it'll be Hell in a Cell, or those two facing each other, but this time it's going to be Extreme Rules or whatever, so on and so forth. Let's let them get new tag team partners and go at it that way 1 month, and then maybe the tag team partner with Randy turns on him, joins Matt and his tag team partner for a little mini stable. Of course, it won't last. 3 people going after one, so you can elongate it even further with him facing each one of the, his former tag team partner, then Matt Riddle's current tag team partner, and then the final blow off with Matt Riddle. Mm-hmm. That's how we elongate this storyline. You keep Orton a face this whole time, which is going to be hard, but there's ways to do it because you did it before. You did it for almost a year with the whole Benoit angle after getting kicked out of Evolution. So, not to be confused with Evolution. Oh, okay, coming soon to a toilet near you. So that's the best way we can do it. And you're going to need somebody that would look good as a tag partner with Orton to turn on him. You can't just throw like a Jackson Riker in there or somebody like that.
No, I agree, and I don't think they'll. While it's possible to get 6 months out of it, I doubt they're going to go 6 months for this thing. No matter who turns on who, I just don't see them going from now through the end of literally through December for that program. I mean, fans don't have the patience for it, and I'm sure WWE couldn't come up with enough content to really string it out that long. But I think that ultimately, yeah, Randy Orton's probably going to have to be the babyface for a while, and Randy has said many times he'd rather be a heel. He loves being a heel. He's more natural as a heel. I think all fans agree with that. But we've seen a babyface Orton from time to time, and the RKO is super over, and Randy doesn't have to change his character too much. So I'm fine with it in the short term because we know that a heel turn is right around the corner anytime Randy turns face. So, but you did talk about Evolution. Do you really do you have any thoughts on this? Because we did see several weeks ago Eva Marie, who was in a bikini, scantily clad, on like some kind of sports car, basically showing off her body, sexualizing Eva Marie, bringing us back to literally the Attitude Era. To me, I was not big on this at all, just because it was such a regression of everything the women have stood for and have tried to move past. It was just like bringing up old memories. And not because I don't enjoy seeing it. I'm a straight guy. It's just I don't want that in my wrestling. I think the women have done too much to go back. But more this past few weeks, it's actually been more fitness focused. It's been more in ring. And as much as you and I may say this is kind of like garbage, at least they're showing her in a athletic, competitive arena and lens, rather than just, hey, look how good I look in a bikini. Look at my, look up here, look down here. That's essentially what they did for the first couple of weeks, and at least they've moved to a more respectable way.
So this week's vignette, she's in the ring, right, wrestling.
Yes.
And one of the voiceovers, she says, I got back in WWE, or she said to make it in WWE, you have to be a fighter, you have to be a competitor. And I thought, when did you ever fight or compete?
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Weren't you a model to get signed? Your best moment ever was a wardrobe malfunction.
Yep. And
you were known for botching the only times you ever, and I'm sure the botch guy could have a field day pointing out every. In fact, we should just do a show and just get him on and be like, all right, tell us about this match, and we could all track it on YouTube in real time. It'd be a lot of fun. So, just the fact, you remember when I sent you all that Twitter backlash that my nephew had sent to me, and all the Facebook backlash when she said she was coming in, and people like, you fired Samoa Joe for this. Yeah. So this girl's got heat coming right in. She is fire hot because people don't want to see her in the ring. They know she doesn't take it seriously, and she might have changed her tune. She might. I doubt she's going to be the next Sasha Banks in that ring, but even if she performs that level, for the first 6 months, everybody's going to boo her out of the building. I guarantee when she comes out, when you come back after a long time, you're supposed to get a hero's welcome. She is not going to get that.
No, because she never did anything impactful other than you said like a wardrobe malfunction, and she was all everything red, and she never actually had a match. Like that's really what we remember. And you're right. I think based on the vignettes that we've seen the last few weeks, it seems like they're going to try to make her a babyface. All the rhetoric she was talking about how, I fought and clawed and had to, figure out what I wanted to do with my life and apply those skills outside of WWE. And then I came back, and it seems like they're actually going to try for a shoot to make her a babyface. And you're right. I hope to God that she somehow debuts in front of a live audience, because the crowd they're going to eat her alive, and they're going to try to make her a babyface. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. There's really no way. So.
It's especially like you said, a live crowd, they will eat her lunch. And I almost see this as like the second coming of Emelina, who should come out of the audience and tackle her. That would be awesome.
Oh my God.
I know she's under contract to Impact or Ring of Honor, or maybe both, but that would just be the best. Just like, is that Emelina? Just like, spears her, takes her out. Oh, that was awesome.
Guys, if you don't know who Emelina is, please go look. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I gotta ask you though, my friend, Shayna, as we're on the whole women's division, I'll keep with the trend here. Shayna Baszler versus Reginald, and Reginald ends up getting a victory via the roll-up after the dreaded roll-up, number one, dreaded distraction finish that is just, I mean, it is, I don't even know what to say anymore. Overuse is being kind in the finishes that WWE does now, for every show they have. But Reginald actually got some offense in. I thought he was just going to be a gymnast the entire time, as he's been in every other male versus female match he's been in. And he actually did a body slam to Shayna Baszler, and Shayna just responded in kind, and snapped on him. But the fire ended up distracting Shayna Baszler, who gets rolled up by Reginald, and then Reginald ends up on the Alexa's playground, and then Shayna ends up on Alexa's playground, and Lily is not happy with Shayna Baszler. So it appears that this is going to be Shayna and Alexa Bliss, and Reginald, I don't know his role in this thing, but what do you make of all of this with Shayna and Nia, who finally seem to be going their separate ways, those that have been waiting for Shayna Baszler to break away? But your thoughts, my friend?
Okay, they're definitely breaking up, and I mean, the pyro, we both know that's Alexa Bliss doing that, because she's the only person besides the Fiend that has these spooky superpowers. And, Kane's busy over in Knox County. Let the man do his thing. He's a mayor.
Yeah.
So, okay, first of all, with Reginald being the modern day man's James Ellsworth, I don't know what's going on with that guy. I don't know why he gets so much screen time. I don't know why there are so many talented wrestlers who don't have a match, and yet he's being forced into an intergender match and being forced to look like the lapdog of every female who will listen to him for a couple seconds. I know it's to try to further a storyline between excuse me, crumb in my throat, between Shayna and Nia splitting, which just split it. There's a way to split it, but the build towards Alexa and Shayna is going to be a brand new match we've never seen before. So that's the big payoff to me, because I'm curious to see what kind of ring shape Alexa's in these days. I'm curious to see if Alexa's still as good in the ring as she was, because I thought she was a really good performer. Her only problem is that she was so much incredibly smaller than everybody else. So she really had to outperform everybody when she was in that ring, or raise her game, and she did. I really think she did. I mean, like I said, going back to like some of the household names of Sasha Banks and Charlotte, she's not on that top tier, but she's definitely above Nia, Tamina. I don't know. I don't think she's above Natalie, but she's really close to that Natalie level, because Natalie's probably your ultimate hand in female wrestling, your ultimate service person that you can plug into anything. I want to see how the story's going to progress. I want to see if there's going to be an NXT call-up involved, like the doll is actually a messaging channel to maybe like an Ember Moon making a reappearance. So there's a lot of possibilities with this, but the fact that we're getting a fresh match out of it, and Shayna's finally going solo, and we might be able to get Shayna and Ripley and Shayna and Charlotte, and we're not just going to have booking here, because Shayna belongs at the top tier, and then we can plug Nia into other situations. What I ultimately see happening with Reginald is he'll end up getting like the Taster's Corner, like his own talk show. I'm sick of the talk shows, but that's what I kind of see happening with him, because this whole flippy. What I wrote down is that the match was a little bit botchy, not super botchy, but a little bit. I did like the fact that, of course, he's doing his gymnast stuff, Mr. Cirque du Soleil. Not a big fan of it, because it came really close to like an indie performance with no selling. But he did sell limitedly, so it wasn't incredibly bad, but just wasn't incredibly great either. The match took up too much airtime, and I just liked how Shayna, when she finds her groove as the psycho submission machine, the contradiction styles between her and Reginald and the flippy stuff, it kind of made it a little bit of fun, as long as he could tone down the flippy stuff. And I also like the fact that after he body slammed her, he looked legitimately upset. Like he's trying to tell a story and sell something in the ring. So I got to give props where props are due on that one. So that's how I felt about the match. But I can't wait for the breakup. I cannot wait for Alexa and Shayna to start working a program, because I see it as one of those where Alexa has become such a centerpiece on her own that she can't lose, but Shayna is destined for bigger things, way bigger things. She's destined to be at that top tier. So I got to see how they're going to do this. I hate to see a 50-50 booking. The only way I can see it is like a no contest that gets really off the rails in like a Carnival of Horrors match or something like that.
I hope they don't go cinematic with this.
Not cinematic.
Yeah. But at the same time, like you're right. This is a bit problematic. Not because I don't want to see it. I think that Shayna and Alexa are going to be really, work well off one another. They're very, very different characters. I don't think I've ever seen them work together, and so that's great. I have no problem with this, and I'm in support of this matchup. I just, like you said, how do you book this? Because both need the wins badly. I mean, we have Alexa Bliss who, she's absorbed the power of the Fiend. She hasn't had her own program, and it feels like a year. We have Shayna Baszler, who we all knew was being buried in that tag team and deserved way better than she was getting on a weekly basis. And now she's, seemingly finally getting out of that stranglehold. So it seems like both need that big victory. So we may unfortunately see 50-50 booking from these two, and maybe Alexa wins one pay-per-view, Shayna wins the next one, and that's probably how they're going to do it. But I'm interested to see this program. Alexa Bliss, as you said, has she hasn't competed in a ring in a long time. Outside of, I think she was in the Rumble. She was in the Rumble for a brief moment there, tried to transform, and I think somebody threw her over the top. I'm fine with it. I think this is going to be a fun program, and I think it's finally time for Alexa Bliss to stop sitting on her swing in backstage and actually come out and do something. That is what I'm waiting for. We've seen enough of the hocus pocus and her creepy doll and all of the magic tricks. It's time for her to get in a real program, and I think Shayna Baszler is a very interesting, intriguing spot. It's just difficult because you need both to win. All right. So, okay. So, any final thoughts on Shayna and Alexa Bliss before we get to our next topic here of Sheamus? At least that's on my list. But anything?
Well, as far as this goes, this is the kind of match where if one of them is going to be the definitive winner, it should have been at a Big Four, and we're nowhere near a Big Four right now. So, because Alexa is just that polarizing, and Shayna is just that intimidating and that good at what she does. So that's where they screwed up on the timeline of this. So if they can somehow push the timeline to SummerSlam and then give us a blow-off with a definitive winner there, and maybe have them sidetracked with Shayna and Nia and Alexa and somebody else, or Alexa being the thorn in the side. Then we get to SummerSlam, we finally have the two. Then it doesn't hurt one of them to lose at that because we built it and it's at a big pay-per-view. And then you just got to figure out what you're doing after.
Right. No, I agree. And it's weird that assumingly this could happen in Hell in a Cell. I know that after Hell in a Cell, it is going to be Money in the Bank, I believe. Typically, July is Extreme Rules, so it's weird. This whole summer's bizarre because of the live crowds coming back, and I understand they're trying to make the live crowd experience the best it can be, and I get that. So I understand why they're doing it. It's just that's throwing me off. For the rest of the summer is like, wait, when is what, right? So I would assume it's going Hell in a Cell, Extreme Rules, and then SummerSlam, I think. So this is going to be an interesting summer for sure, and I expect this program to last for a couple of months. So. Okay, Sheamus, buddy. Sheamus gets the short end of the stick here with Sheamus versus Ricochet, and then Sheamus versus Umberto Carrillo. This was not for those Hulu watchers. This was not on the Hulu version of Raw, so I actually had to go back and read and see what happened. And Carrillo actually busted Sheamus open, it looked like, with a stiff forearm. I would assume that was a shoot. It wasn't supposed to actually happen. But Sheamus ends up losing twice. Am I wrong?
I only got to read the results on this, and that kind of shocked me because I did have to do the Hulu version because my work schedule on Mondays. And I tried to find the footage, but I couldn't find the footage. This is part of what you and I have talked about as far as titles not meaning anything. To get the short end of the stick twice on a show by one person who they really haven't done much with in Carrillo, and a guy that they're purposefully trying to make look bad in Ricochet. I don't get what's going on here. And so your champion looks like a chump. So the only thing I see this maybe being like a triple threat match going forward, and then Sheamus gets the win, and you were never a threat the whole time kind of thing.
It's weird that the way that they structured Sheamus over the last several months before WrestleMania, the guy was main eventing Raws. He actually had a main event on a pay-per-view or two. He was facing Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. There were times when you thought he actually could win. I was fantasy booking like, well, Sheamus actually might have a small chance of winning. There were times when Sheamus was at the top and, he gets to WrestleMania. He wins the United States Championship. I think a lot of fans were happy about that because they felt that he was deserving of it. And now he's just been relegated to the lower mid card of the roster, working with, again, nothing against Carrillo, but it's like, when you look at Sheamus and you look at Carrillo and you look at Ricochet, they're not exactly anywhere on the same level. And, I understand they're trying to build new stars, but you're damaging Sheamus in the process here. So I don't know. I feel for Sheamus, and I feel for the United States Championship itself.
Well, there's some things that we talked about over the last couple months. You and I actually both said that we at one point, we'd both predicted Sheamus to win the world title. I'm not a Sheamus fan, but the things I will give him is the fact that when he was working all those matches with Matt Riddle, he was experimenting with chain wrestling and upping his game. He wasn't just doing his kick, punch, body slam stuff. So maybe by working with Carrillo and Ricochet, I'm not saying he's going to become an aerial assassin like Ricochet or break out some of the lucha like Carrillo, but he might learn some newer stuff, some fresher stuff to keep his character fresh. Because like I said, I've never been wowed by him. He's had some decent matches, but when he impressed me by doing the chain wrestling, it shows me that he's trying to up his game. And so he knows he's getting a little bit older. He knows that he's very guilty of the person who goes in with a set of moves and goes right through every set of moves to either victory or the dreaded roll-up in defeat. So when he breaks that down and I start seeing different things out of him, and I notice it's the opponent he has, so maybe the producer and the opponent are getting together and saying, okay, Carrillo can do this, so why don't you catch him, and instead of going for your chest beat, why don't you do a slingshot powerbomb? Okay, we've never seen him do that before. So there are things that that he can pick up by working with certain people that I think has never clicked in his mind before. And I think that working with that program with Matt Riddle is what was really best for him in helping him try to not necessarily reinvent his career, but further his skill set.
I could buy that. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think that Sheamus working with those two guys with today's style, there's nobody that is, I think, more representative of today's style of wrestling than Ricochet. It certainly can help round out his timing and everything else with those guys, and also in the process help elevate those guys, given the fact that, I mean, let's face it, Sheamus is a bigger star than both guys. Love him or hate him, that's a fact. So, I don't hate this. It's just interesting that they clearly didn't have any plans for Sheamus post WrestleMania. I mean, they had none. And I know they had none because he hasn't been on Hulu. He hasn't made the Hulu cut in quite a while on that side of things. And after WrestleMania, he went to Umberto Carrillo. I mean, there was clearly no plan after WrestleMania for him. But I mean, it is what it is. I respect Sheamus. I'm not going to go and cheer for the guy, but I respect what he's done. He is a star, and I just, it's damaging the championship. Okay, two other things that weren't on Hulu. You didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I do want to mention it because it's the Raw review. Is Naomi and Lana versus Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. And in this match, I'm reading this just to make sure I get this right. Brooke made the cover and got the pin. Is obviously the finish here, and I mean, I don't know really what to make of this team other than these two teams, Naomi and Lana and Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. Other than there's a lot of blonde in this matchup.
Yes,
like blonde everywhere outside of Naomi. So that's what I took away from this as I'm watching the highlights on mute here. But are there any consequences of this matchup, or is this just let's fill time to make sure the women get some on-air time? What did you make of this?
What I make of it is hopefully it's the beginning of something for Dana Brooke, because Dana Brooke is talented, but for some reason they just never saw her as marketable, so she's never gotten the rub. I mean, when you look at that terrible, she was stuck with Titus International.
Yes.
Like, why would you just outright kill someone's career before it ever got started? And we are now looking at how long it has taken for her to recoup from that. And first of all, you've got, like you said, a lot of blonde. Okay, you've got Naomi, who's mediocre. I've never saw the big hype about her. In fact, I wouldn't say she has channel-changing heat with me, but I'm just kind of like, I get bored with her because she's very much a go through her moves, and they always it looks like she's trying to remember her moves as she does them. She's very guilty of that. And always it's like when she goes to step in for a spot, it's like you can almost see her do like a second little shimmy, like, am I staying where I'm supposed to be? She's always been that kind of a wrestler to me. Dana Brooke, she's a powerhouse. She's a little muscular powerhouse. She has so much potential, and they just don't let her show it off. Lana, why is she in a ring? I just don't get it. She's drop dead gorgeous, but her position is not in the ring. She reeks of backstage interviewer. Let her do what she does best, because she's not a performer. Even if she improves, she's still really bad.
And the thing is,
that's the best way I could put it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if you have a plate full of Oreos and one falls on the floor, you can pick it up and put it on the plate, but it's still the floor Oreo. And that's the problem. She's the Oreo that hit the floor. You can clean it off, and it looks better than it did before. Oh, I learned a couple moves, but it was still on the floor. I'm not eating that Oreo.
Oh God, that is great. Again, you fulfilled your quota for the food analogies for the show, but they're great. So that is kind of what she is. And you know what, Lana, I have nothing personally against her. Like you said, she doesn't seem to have it. And I'm sure that you and me right now, if Lana was listening to this, would be her motivation to want to keep working harder and harder. And we're the naysayers, and we're the ones who are fueling her fire to keep working harder. And you know what? If we are, great. This is not a personal shot. against her whatsoever. It just, on TV, these are the facts. She does not come across on the same level as most of the other women. She doesn't seem to have the it. She just doesn't seem as fluid in the ring as a lot of the women do, and it takes time. I understand that. But she's missing that it factor in the ring. It doesn't look like she's a wrestler. It looks like she is a manager playing a wrestler. And I understand she was with Rusev, which I think was her best role ever, by the way, with her in her Russian accent. I loved them, the original team, before John Cena buried them at WrestleMania. I think that is, to me, where she belongs. And it's not a disrespect to women. It's not a disrespect to anybody other than this is just what I see. There's some men in the ring, like Reginald, who I don't think should be in the ring competing for anything other than just being a manager. MVP, I think, belongs being a manager. I mean, so this is not taking a shot at the women. And no. Lana just, to me, belongs in a managerial role, and that's okay. Managers can still be really good, and if she wants to continue to pursue in-ring, more power to her. I just don't feel it.
I've got a nightmare booking for you. Lana versus Eva Marie.
Why do you do these things? Oh, God. Yeah.
So you can scrub your eyes later.
Yeah, no, that hurt my wrestling soul. Like, you can't. No, God, please, don't put that out there in the universe. Okay, yikes. Okay, let's move on though. Something else that happened on Hulu or didn't happen on Hulu. Cedric Alexander versus Shelton Benjamin. Boy, oh boy, have these two fallen from grace, haven't they? I mean, from the Hurt Business to the tag team division.
So much talent. So much talent flushed right down the toilet.
Yeah, what do you think about this? Do you even care about this rivalry, or what do you think?
It's a time filler that doesn't even make the short version. I hate it because I didn't get to see it, and I bet it was actually a really good match because I know both are so incredibly talented. And if they're gonna just use Benjamin as fodder, I'd rather see him segue to a backstage producer because even at his age, he still has it better than 90% of the people. His athleticism, his ring presence, and especially his execution. His execution is just great. And he has an unlimited, untapped skill set. So he can do stuff in that ring that you don't expect coming out of him. As far as Cedric goes, I followed his career from the Indies up till the Cruiserweight Classic. That's an organic moment when everybody's screaming for him to get signed and Triple H comes out and signs him. That's organic. So you had that organic moment and that guy who didn't say a word. He just said thank you with tears in his eyes, and you had a standing ovation against Kota Ibushi, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. And you have now taken him, put him on Raw, and he doesn't even make the shortcut. That's pathetic. He needs to go to SmackDown and find a different program because being on Raw is doing him no favors, being on the same program as his former managers when he was at the height of his fame.
Well, as you were saying that, I had to look at the description of the match, and I saw some quick highlights. It says this, so get ready. After each man, and I'm reading this verbatim from Bleacher Report, so credit to them. After each man scored a win over the other in recent weeks, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander met for a rubber match this week. Alexander quickly hit a thumb to the eye before getting the pin. So they stuck, and their analysis said this, and I think it's very accurate. When you stick two of the best in-ring performers in the ring together and make it last 30 seconds, you get a bad grade, plain and simple. So it was a thumb to the eye and getting a pin. Like that is what this match consisted of. So. Oh,
that's pathetic. You could have had the match of the night. You could have had like when we watched what was it? Angel Garza against Aleister Black like a year ago, and we were talking almost 2 years ago now.
Yes.
And we were both like, let's give him 20 minutes. Let's watch it all night. You could have had that level and that caliber of a match here, and instead we get a thumb to the eye. This is like the finger poke of doom.
Oh, God, the finger poke of doom, yeah. Oh, God. You got to know, guys, if you didn't watch WWE after the time, the finger poke of doom in WCW, it literally was. I mean, figuratively, the finger poke of doom. But you're right. And they could have just taken 10 minutes from the god-awful opening segment and put it into this match, but instead they went for the entertainment-y garlic necklace stuff. So,
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, God. All right. Let's get into something that you and I did see, and we're wrapping things up here, at least on my end. We have AJ Styles and Omas versus Elias and Jackson Riker. Now, obviously they did retain their tag title. This was for the tag team championship, I believe. Yes, it was. And not only did AJ Styles and Omas win, Omas seems to be improving slightly in the ring for his size, and we can only expect so much from the guy. The guy's an absolute monster. And, you could also make the argument that AJ Styles should not be in a tag team position. And, yeah, you'd probably be right. AJ Styles has not been on TV much since WrestleMania. He took like a month, or WWE didn't have anything for him for a month. Then he's barely on the Hulu version. There is an argument to be made for frustration. But he is a champion. There is that. And the storyline here wasn't even that, though. It was Elias bailing on Jackson Riker, and that really was the story here. I think the match itself was fine. I really didn't have a problem with the match itself. I think it was good. But first of all, do you even care about Jackson Riker and Elias, or how do you feel about this in a very, very thin tag team division?
Well, yeah, that's you just hit the nail on the head. This is a very thin tag team division, and theoretically, you had two heel teams versus two heel teams. Why would you do that? So it made no sense that they had no babyface team to face them to make more sense in a storyline when you have the titles going on. So you're splitting up Riker and Elias, which they kind of worked together. Here's my thing, okay? First of all, I marked that this match had a very 80s vibe. A lot of rest holds, a lot of basic moves. Not as much of AJ being AJ and keeping almost protected till the end. But there's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain why. So you know who Riker was in his past life, right?
I believe was he part of Insanity?
No, he was in TNA and Impact as Gunner.
Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. And so he has worked with AJ before, okay? And almost, while huge and being trained in the Performance Center, he's very green. This was a match of protective coaching. So, because Elias is decent in the ring, he's not great, but he's decent. He can actually do he can pull out some pretty cool spots while doing a mid-level match, okay? He doesn't have a super wow factor, but he will have one or two spots where you go, did Elias really just do that? So what they're trying to do here is Riker, because he's worked Styles in the past in TNA, they do most of the work, try to find the chemistry, because AJ's trying to make him look better, to make him look like a credible opponent for Elias, because if Elias goes against someone, Gunner was never that great in the ring. He was another one who looks like he has to think about what he's doing before he does it, and it showed in TNA really, really bad. He pushed him right away to the top part of the card. He was like not necessarily main eventing, but he was like in tag main events. And when he got tagged in, you could tell he didn't know what to do. No camera presence, no, not chain wrestling, but no second step. Knock somebody over with a clothesline and then stare into the camera and not think about, okay, now I got to pick him up and now I got to set for the next move kind of thing. He's always had that learning curve. That's why he spent so much time down in NXT, and then that's why the two people he was with were released. So I think this was, okay, they're trying to get us as the viewer and the fan to buy this as a viable tag team versus tag team and the storyline being a split. But really it's AJ doing the work, trying to make it look like they're tag teams when really to me, I could see AJ's doing the work, Riker's trying to get better, like he's learning in a practical lab as opposed to studying at home in a textbook. And then we're going to protect almost to the end. He knows what few moves he's going to go through, but every week we're going to just keep making him better by protecting him till the end until he gets enough practice by either being on the road with AJ or working with AJ in the Performance Center that he becomes a viable big man. That's how I bought this whole match, just by watching it.
Wow. So, okay, you look at this as, like you said, protective coaching, but really as a way to advance Omos rather than necessarily build Riker as a star? Or did you see it as kind of both? Okay.
It was kind of both, but if Riker's going to work, if they're going to cut him loose from Elias, then we're going to probably have that match next week. And I am dreading that match unless Riker's gotten better and this was like a last minute polishing everything up. So if you look at it, does Jackson Riker have a finisher? Do you know what his moveset is?
Yeah, no.
You know, he did 3 very, very awesome headlocks tonight. That's not good. That's not good.
Yeah.
That's why I said this had a very 80s vibe to it. It was very basic. You know, we got your basic drop kick. We didn't get like, you know, the missile drop kick or something like that. We got a very basic match so we can start one storyline, but we got to protect one guy, and we're also trying to polish up Riker. So we're protecting Omas so he can get better. And I think it's one of these, do we go immediately into Elias versus Riker, or was this an assessment of his skill level to see performance center him every day for like the next 3 weeks, then we have that match at Hell in a Cell? I think that's what this was. It was an assessment. They put him under the microscope in this match because you've worked AJ before and he could cover for anything.
Oh, AJ is that good. And, you know,
yeah.
AJ, it feels like AJ hasn't been relevant in a long time. You know, really since the Undertaker match at last year's WrestleMania and the Boneyard match, it feels like he has just been kind of lost in the sauce. And I understand that he's champion, but he feels kind of like he's playing second fiddle to Omos, who is clearly the bigger, well, I don't want to say bigger star. He's the bigger man, and they're trying to build another star, and I understand that. That's what this business is all about. And Jackson Riker, the guy is in insane shape. Like, when you look at this dude, you talk about zero body fat. This guy has, like, he must just eat salad and lean protein, chicken. Like, he must do. I mean, I don't know what his diet is like, but it must be inhuman. So credit to that guy. And he did mention that he served in Iraq. Is that true? I would think that is, right?
That's why he went by the name Gunner in TNA.
Okay.
Because I'm not positive, but I think he was a gunnery sergeant.
Makes sense.
And
okay.
He is a legitimate. Definitely a legitimate veteran. And if you notice, he's a heel, but he had an American flag on his tights. That was a red. That to me was like the Macho Man when he would wear the different color hats when he was going to switch in a match. So that to me was a big indicator of what was going to happen. And of course, what I don't like, and this is the only thing I will say about that, is I've known a lot of veterans in my life. I used to live next to the Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base. My old roommate was in the Marine Corps, and I know some people who came back, and sometimes, you know, you hang out, have a couple beers, and they would get that 40-yard stare, and you know that they went someplace else for a little bit. So mimicking that, because that's what they were doing with this, in my book, isn't cool.
Backstage.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Mimicking that they were giving him the 40-yard stare. I can't say it. I'm sorry.
I know what you mean. Stutter. Yeah.
Yeah, the 40-yard stare, which a lot of veterans go into when they start flashing back, and to have this breakaway on what day? Memorial Day.
Yeah.
They think they're putting money in the bank right away.
I don't know how many people actually connected the dots on that. I didn't until I know exactly what you're talking about, but I didn't connect it until you told me. And yeah, so you actually took it as kind of disrespectful, though.
I think that somebody who never served or knew anybody who ever served wrote that segment, like someone who's aspiring to be an author, so they learn about it, but not realizing that, you know, it's just not cool because, I don't know, like I said, I know a couple of vets that, you know, you're just talking, all of a sudden they just go someplace, and you kind of back up and say, hey, you know, I don't want to say their name, but, you know, like, hey, so-and-so, you okay? And they just kind of snap out of it, you know, I was thinking about something else. And you don't ask. You don't ask out of respect. You do not ask them where they went.
Nope. I mean, I would venture to guess, not specifically, but on a high level, it's probably not a good place.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Especially if alcohol is involved, and it probably brings back memories that they don't want to relive. But so I get it. Yeah, and that is probably exactly what they were going for. It's too coincidental. And the first time we learned that he was an Iraq veteran, at least for WWE fans, that he was actually in Iraq veteran. We learn it on Memorial Day, and we see it in his tights, wearing the United States flag. So, yeah, I don't think there's even a doubt as to exactly what they were doing there. So, good observation. All right, well, what else did you have?
Thank you.
What else did you have? I don't know if I have anything else on my list.
Okay, so one thing I really love is the way they're evolving Bobby Lashley into a Nick Bockwinkel character. And yeah, because it's not complete until I give you at least one old school name. And if you guys don't realize, Nick Bockwinkel always dressed, unless he was wrestling, he always dressed like a professional. He always came in dressed completely in a suit. And he would cut his promos like that, and he always had sunglasses on, okay? And I got to catch him on the tail end of his career in the AWA. The man could cut a promo, and, of course, by the time I saw him, he was in his probably late 40s. And so it was definitely the end. I think he used to carry a whip with him, take a whip along with him sometimes. But before Hulk Hogan had defected to the WWF in the AWA, Nick Bockwinkel was always the thorn in his side. And he was managed by some guy, I believe, named Bobby Heenan for a while.
Huh. Who's that?
Yes. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I heard he was pretty good, but I don't know.
Huh. Okay.
Here's something interesting.
Yeah.
Do you remember right around the time of the Jericho tag team that Chris Jericho took to always wearing sunglasses and a suit?
Yes.
That's because he was trying to mimic Nick Bockwinkel. He said it in his DVDs, and he said it on interviews. He said he wanted to reinvent his character, so he started looking at old footage, and he caught on to Nick Bockwinkel, and he said, okay, this guy – the old etiquette, and for anybody who doesn't know this, is that when you showed up to the building, you should always be dressed in a suit because you're a professional wrestler, and the word professional came first. And it was a nod – to the promoters to say thank you for hiring me. They didn't want you to show up in jeans and a t-shirt or looking frumpy. When the Radicals very first jumped from WWE to WWF, they were backstage, and I believe it was Perry Saturn who said on his website many years ago that they ran into Killer Kowalski, who trained him. I mean, he said, isn't it great to be here? He goes, yeah, guys, it's really great. I love seeing you. But I can tell you have that Southern training. And they said, why? He goes, you're professional wrestlers. Why did you not show up as professionals? The very next week when they turned heels, it shows them walking into the building. Every one of them was dressed in a suit. There's little things like that I pick up on because, I've been watching forever. So he looks – okay, so they're adding depth. He's not just the monster, the slayer, the dominator, the devastator. They're showing he's also a complete professional. I just didn't like all the women around him because I didn't like – I mean, it's also not ripping off the Nick Bockwinkel persona completely because you're adding the women in. But I'm afraid that the women are going to start to accompany him to the match, and that's going to be the distraction for something. I don't want to pre-write that for something. I don't want to pre-write that for a match, but I can almost see it. But I do like when he's not wrestling, not going out there in just his tights. He's going out there in a suit. He looks like a complete professional and adds so much credibility and depth to what MVP has done with him with the Hurt Business because it adds that word business to it. He looks like a businessman. He looks like a professional wrestler. And he is here. MVP is going to cut a promo. Lashley's going to say a few words. They're going to let you know you don't mean anything to him, and then they're going to walk out. And that's why the Horsemen always dressed in the suits, and they always look like because it's a status thing. And it's also just a nod to the way you're supposed to be backstage. I like that. It's a great, great slow transformation in Lashley's character.
I agree about the suits, and I hope that the women don't end up helping him because if you're trying to prepare him for Brock Lesnar, I don't want him looking like he needs any help at all, right? Like I want him being as strong as possible. I don't want MVP interfering. I don't want any distraction finishes. You need to build this guy as almost unbeatable if the goal is to eventually get him to Brock. That the more you build him, the hotter that match will be if it's going to happen. But as far as the women go, I mean, yeah, there are two ways to look at it, right? Like you could look at it and say, oh, well, he's just celebrating. He's the arrogant guy. He's got these women bought for him. But he's also got these women bought for him. And you're all of a sudden bringing back the 2021 version of the Ho Train, a much more tempered down version of it that doesn't include just completely transparent degradations of women. And look, I'm not sitting here trying to be a feminist activist or anything. It's just I'm looking at it as like the progression of women in WWE. I understand these women are not a part of the roster. They're not. But they're still women. And when you have women on the show who are nothing more than eye candy, dressed in these really, really tight outfits, that kind of brings you back to, the early 2000s. And, we have, The Godfather coming out and the Ho Train and all that kind of stuff. It does bring you back, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And I don't know. There are two ways to look at it. But I do agree with the Bobby Lashley presentation, the orange suits, MVP saying what he needs to say. I love this duo. I mean, you talk about MVP truly being the MVP over the last 6 to 12 months for Bobby Lashley. My God, whatever they're paying MVP, it's not enough right now.
Since Heyman, we haven't had a heel manager who could get everything done that they say their client will get done. And that's what I love about this, because he doesn't have the poison tongue of a Paul Heyman, but he has an excellent factual promo, because he makes you a promise and he keeps it. And that is just so great. It's so amazing. And he does it in his own style. So even though stuff is written for him, he has a way of delivering it and a way of emphasizing and exacerbating it. Not exacerbating, what's the word? But it's basically his emphasis. There
you go.
Thank you.
You found it.
Thank you.
Yay.
I know. Thank you. It's fantastic, and it's unique. He's cutting unique scripted promos, and I don't know how much input he has on his character, let alone input he has on, just this, like I said, this Nick Bockwinkel look. And everybody, I highly recommend you look up old NWA footage of Nick Bockwinkel, look at him cut some promos. You will see the parallels. You'll just say, wow. And then you look at Jericho during, I believe it was the Jericho era when he was wearing all the suits, and you're going to say, wow, I see it there. See, a lot of people thought it was a nod to Ric Flair, but really, no, it's Bockwinkel. You can see it. But yeah, he's definitely the MVP of it, and I really want to see the Hurt Business get a couple more people. I really didn't want to see it dissolve as small as it is, and it would keep Cedric and Shelton relevant on at least the shortcut on Hulu, if they're at least in the background enjoying themselves with the women, or they're in suits also, talking. Cutting their promo on their next match or something like that. Breaking them up was one of the dumbest things you could have done. The only what if this? And here's your fantasy booking, because it's never complete without you or I throwing this out there. What if the New Day were to join the Hurt Business?
Ooh. First of all, I would be in support of it for one big reason. New Day would cease to exist. Any storyline you could present me where New Day dissolves, I would more than likely tell you to sign me up now.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's fine with me, as long as the New Day is banned from ever reconvening again as the New Day. Yes, please.
It would be great. They join the Hurt Business. They take on the Hurt Business name, and of course, they're in the suits. I would love to see MVP just destroy the trumpet right in front of them, and just throw it in a trash compactor, and just kind of maybe slap them across the face. They get some haircuts. Mm-hmm. They don't really have to change their in-ring, because they're both really, really talented, but maybe have to add, even when they were heels, they used too many babyface moves. So they need to add some more heel moves, heel skill set moves. And they have to learn, instead of being obnoxious, a new way to taunt the crowd. And I believe that those guys have had so much exposure in front of the camera that they can figure out a way to be a true heel and taunt the crowd. It would be the best thing. It would be the most refreshing thing for them. And then when you do the so-called superstar shakeup, that's when you pull Big E over to try to open their minds and bring them back to what their roots are. And then we have a beatdown on Big E, and he is in that role of crusading against the Hurt Business.
And then you build Big E as a star, and actually,
Exactly.
Yeah. See? Damn. This is what I'm talking about, where, I think that while it's a good idea, I don't think Vince would like it because, oh, well, wait a minute, how much money is the New Day bringing in, right? Money, money, money. It's all about money, and not all the time, but and I get it too to a certain respect. So it's hard for me to sit here and go, oh, this is bad for creative. What are you doing here and there? I would think a lot of it is money-driven reasons, and not just necessarily the best storyline, but rather what will draw the most money, even if it's not the best decision. I
agree.
Yeah.
I just think of what's going to get your attendance back.
Oh, yeah.
What's going to get your attendance back and your ratings back are our ideas. He's thinking about merchandise sales, and that's only going to last so long. The kids who bought that 5 years ago, they're teenagers now and are sick of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, some of them are in high school now, and they're like, yeah, I trash that stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, that's true. Yeah, I mean, but, jeez. Did you have anything else on your list before we close things up?
No, I think that pretty much covers Raw for this week. I didn't really hear a ton of announcements for next week's Raw, so I don't think there's anything really to preview. In fact, maybe it was just me having the Hulu version. I didn't see that much of Adam Pearce on the show tonight. Trying to think who else I missed, and it could be just the Hulu version, but Braun Strowman, obviously. I guess Big Braun got the week off.
Well, I did miss Adam Pearce, a camera constantly on him, on his cell phone, because that's where cameras are supposed to go. And GMs are officials are just supposed to be constantly on their phones. I mean, I said this the other time. Last night, was it? The night before? Why does WWE, is that their only transition? Did they not know how to transition to a segment other than just filming the WWE official on their phone texting? I mean, like, Kurt Angle did it. I mean, who has not done it that has been a GM or official? It's just, get off your phones, and why are we filming you on your phone, right? Like,
Teddy Long, playa. He was never on a phone.
Yeah, I know. Oh, God.
Yeah, but I'm also looking at, like, who's on TV that if Braun Strowman's not on TV right now, and we got what, 15 days till Hell in a Cell?
19.
Maybe longer. 19. Okay, so there's a chance that they could plug him into something, but I don't know what to plug him into right now. Bray Wyatt, I don't know what's going on with Bray. Has anybody seen our Fiend?
Yeah. So actually, I do. This has been confirmed too. Is actually that he's been struggling with the death of John Huber, Luke Harper, i.e. Brody Lee.
Oh,
so
okay.
He's had a ton of mental health issues since prior to WrestleMania when he passed, all that kind of stuff, and he been struggling, so he actually has been taking time off for his mental health. That's actually a thing. So I that's the reason why.
No, it's actually really touching that you say that, because usually WWE just has everybody stand on the ramp and they show somebody's face and play a song, but that vignette that AEW put together for him at the end, and they held no regard, or they had disregard for caring about using WWF stars in the pictures. I mean, just the amount of emotion that touched people, and you saw how well he was loved. And then when everybody talks about how much John Huber just wanted to get back to his family and really loved his family, you also hear the nightmare stories about wrestlers cheating on their wives and everything else, but they told you he was a complete and utter family man. And just looking at the pictures of him with the same wife, it's not like it was a story of divorce or anything like that. And all the pictures of him with his wife and his kid, it was really heartbreaking, and just knowing how loved he was. So I can understand that. And as a person who, had to deal with certain deaths in my life and having to, maybe go see a therapist, I understand these things. So, I hope he gets well. I didn't know that was what was going on with him. I just thought they, typical WWE fashion, that they didn't know what to do.
No, that's what I assumed too until I saw the news, and it is like fairly confirmed, and that makes sense too, right? Like, the timing of it, and yeah, so he's dealing with that and a bunch of issues with it, and he's just having a hard time coping with it. That's what we've seen and been told, and I buy it. And you know what? If that's the case, I mean, take all the time you need, like whatever. So yeah, that's why he hasn't been on, and that's actually why they flipped the finish at WrestleMania to Randy winning when it should have been the Fiend. although I disagree completely with the way the finish was done, and it was just ridiculous.
Yes.
There's no excuse for that. Like, okay, if he's going to lose, fine. If Bray's going to take time off and do what he needs to do for his mental health, fine. But you don't need to have the finish you did to get there. I mean, that's inexcusable. So, but yeah, that's the reason. So, yeah, I don't mean to end on a sour note, everybody, but well, let's bring it back up. So, is there anything else I think that might have exhausted the list beyond all the downers we just talked about?
No, I just want to say I'm really happy that my boss is up and rolling. Sean, Big Strong Sean is going to be Big Strong Sean again, and he's entrusting me to help run both of his restaurants right now and make sure everything stays straight until his lungs are at full capacity. So it's just exciting to see that the man's actually getting able to walk into his own establishments again and see the progress that was made for him while he was absent and getting better. So it's really relieving to know that we got the big man back.
That's awesome. No, I can speak for all of our listeners in saying, that is great news. Like I said, wrestling is a sandbox we play in, but then real life comes and slaps us in the face. So that's great.
Yeah.
And it's true, right? Like, I mean, we talk about wrestling, we watch wrestling to escape these kinds of things. But
yes.
that's great. So, all right, well, my friend, this has been a pleasure. Obviously, Hell in a Cell is in a few weeks. Maybe we can catch up before then or briefly after, or we'll see. I mean, we play this by ear, so I really have enjoyed it. And if you have social media, feel free to share it or anything else you'd like to say.
Sure. In closing, I would just like to say if anybody would like to reach me, it's at 144captain on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. There's a lot of Michael Grosses out there, so you might have to hunt and peck. But I always love hearing from everybody. If anybody has any ideas or questions for the show, I love it. I absolutely love, or just questions you want to ask me. I've got a few people who love asking me and picking my brain about old matches, stuff that I watched in the 80s that shaped my mind and got me into wrestling. Or if you have ideas that you think would be really cool for fantasy booking, send it to me. I love talking to all of you, and I love the support that you've given me for my boss. And, I just want to say, everybody out there, stay humble. And, just remember that we're almost through this pandemic. So let's just keep our chins up. Okay, folks?
I love that. That's a good way to end it. We are so close to ending this whole thing. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a seasonal thing, but it's manageable. And, whether you got vaccine or not, that's everybody's business. The fact is, yeah, we're heading in the right direction. And compared to this time last year, guys, I mean, think about where we were. So,
yeah.
Really. So, definitely. All right, buddy. Well, I'm glad to hear the good news, and we will be connecting soon.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night.